All right, guys, welcome to the Jolius podcast. I am here once again with my great friend Wilson Walker, real estate agent, broker, and owner of his own business, Double Up, a blackjack business where love and passion and knowledge of the game is all in his head. Please welcome
Yes,
Wilson
sir.
Walker. Yep.
How's it going, Julius?
It's going pretty all right, man. This past 2 weeks is just grinding and just trying to make money. You know how the game is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You already know. That's I know all about it, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And just man, yeah, we have a lot to discuss.
Yes. Because today we're not going to be talking about money or business. We're going to be talking about the dating world, social dynamics, and relationships.
I feel like out here in Las Vegas, definitely there's something going on around the western side of the world, but I feel like specifically here we have a unique situation, and we deal with a lot of stuff with the dynamics of the dating world, what men go through, what women go through. So I'm excited to get into it.
For sure, man, for sure. So, from your experiences, other than just the knowledge of West Coast and dating in Vegas, we'll get to that. What is the current climate for dating for men? Because, oh boy, it is pretty wild since 2020 through the current year right now, 2023. Like, please explain what's going on, because right now, in a nutshell, it is not good for men.
Yeah. So what's going on for men? I feel like what the big thing that is going on is there's been a shift like within the last 10 years, especially with social media, is that there's a shift in essentially power. And with the birth of social media, I believe women now have a lot of power with the attention and validation that they get on a constant basis. And the power that they're receiving from this attention and validation, it allows them to have a lot of leverage within this dating world. And how men are being affected from it is that they are now having to work twice as hard to get about as half of in return as far as their efforts. Forget about chivalry. That's not respected anymore. It really is it's like a poker match nowadays. As far as playing your cards right, bluffing. But yes, just to kind of start it off is that men, they have to adapt to this current dating age. Well, like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. Social media definitely is the current meta of the dating scene. If you're not on it, man, no one knows who you are. And if you're just gonna go out there by yourself and have no presence, then you're just not in the dating pool. You're just like in the background. You're a regular guy. Like there's no such thing as like average game or average person. You're either at the bottom or the top now. And that's the harsh reality is that there might be no middle class for dating anymore. Like you can't just be some average Joe Schmo and get like good results. I'm not gonna lie though, like if you're just an average dude, you're just a regular guy, you have no good social media, if not no social media presence, then you're just gonna get subpar results. And you might not like yourself for that, or you might not get any results at all. And it's pretty terrible.
You said it. As far as there is no middle class, and with everyone kind of knows now the aspect of like the social media is kind of like a dating app. And with that, people have, and women and men have access to the world. So you're now competing, not just back in the day where it was within your small market of your neighborhood, your city. Even you're competing with people who are, doing well and displaying themselves around the world. And with women, they're, the biggest thing that they look for, and the strongest attribute as a man that you could have, I believe, is having social proof. So that's whether it's, women want to be around you and men want to be like you. So social media is a great way to display that. There is, sometimes I'm kind of still old school about liking to go into like a day game, whether that's at a Target or, out at the mall or, just somewhere, grocery store, and approaching women. And even with that, you might exchange phone numbers. A lot of the times you're exchanging, your IG, and what's the first thing that they do is they check your kind of like a background report of your lifestyle, your status, and you just have to level up to that.
Yes, indeed. Like this day and age with technology, like women want to know who you are because they don't want to be approached by a stranger. They don't want to be left in the dark. It's like, who is this guy? Is he going to kill me, or is he someone worth a value? Which is unfortunate to say to men, that you're seen as a value object and not as a person.
Exactly. And it's all about, exchanging of resources within the relationships of, a woman wants, safety, provision, and, they want to make sure that they're picking the highest value man. They're hypergamous. While, men are kind of like an idealist kind of lover, and they just want someone who could fit within that. They don't necessarily have to have the best woman. So with that, it's like, okay, you have only you it's like, I feel like men have like a shorter leash, because as soon as a woman is dissatisfied or questions a man's value, she'll just go ahead and easily look for the next person.
Let's go back to talking about the PUA, dating old tactics. Back in the day, when game was game and there was not much social media and technology usage, you had to go out and meet people. I'm not going to say go out and pick up women because that gives out a bad precedence that you just want to get laid. But at the end of the day, like most guys just want to get laid. Let's be real here. Like no one goes to a relationship guru or buys these pickup boot camps just so they can find the love of their life. Okay, some of them do, but most of the time it's just to get laid and to get body counts and just to have sex with a ton of women. That's just how it is. So, Wilson, I want you to extrapolate the difference between back in the day stuff where technology was not used as much and it was way harder, but it was also harder for women because how can you screen out men without using technology?
Exactly. Well, I like this question because I feel like, with my experience, I've done, the pre-social media era of just pickup game and, out in the field, and then also having to adjust and being single after that, where it's now a new approach. So I would say the old school, the pickup game of what you really had to emphasize was that, you displayed higher value as a guy. In the pickup world, that's, they actually, if you look up Neil Strauss, the mystery from PUA, he actually had a show on
VHS, right?
what's the VHS? No, the
The
it's like MTV VH1. I think that's what the channel
VH1,
was.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, okay. So
I think it's VH1.
the five different pillars of displaying higher value was like being a leader of men, willingness to emote. So okay, I'll break down each leader of men. Okay, of course within your social circle, and that's pretty clear. Willingness to emote. You try to stay stoic most of the time, but every once in a while you could say, oh, someone spills a drink on you, like what the fuck, or you know, but just under a controlled way, and then uh, protector of loved ones. So, if it's, a family dynamic, or, any kind of, kids around, that you're going to be the protector of them. What are the other two? I have a couple notes here. The pre-selection is the number one, and that's just showing that you could get other girls. That is the strongest display of higher value, and women need to see that you could get other women. You're better off kind of being like a player, or displaying that other women highly desire you, versus, oh no, I'm completely faithful to you, you're the only woman for me. Pre-selection. And before the, social media, you just doing it live. If you're going out on a date and the waitress is being friendly, be overly friendly with them, reciprocate that kind of, energy. And then the last one is a successful risk taker. So, whether that's, being an entrepreneur, just showing competence at being able to take risks, because, without any risk, there's no reward. And being able to display that effectively is, one of the 5 displays of higher value. So that's what you wanted to focus on. Just whether that was, pre-social media, or displaying that now on your different platforms.
I find that ironic because at that minimal basis, it's still the same concepts that are being used till this day, whether it be out in the field, out in real life. But actually, I see that also in social media. My mentor, Michael Sartain, literally fills out all 5 of those boxes, shows that competency, shows that relevancy, shows that pre-selection. It's pretty obvious. It's all right there. It's all shown. You don't have to tell anyone that you have game or hella girls. You don't have to tell anyone that you're able to like close a deal. You don't have to tell anyone that you can like bench press 225. You have literal social proof. You have video footage, pictures, etc. Yes, some of them can be doctored, but at the end of the day, no one cares. As long as you show the minimal effort and show proof that you are that man, it's a done deal. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and I like how you said that. The funny thing, Michael Sartain, the men of action, and he definitely displays, what's his number one thing you usually see is him around a lot of beautiful women. That definitely could carry you, most of the way through with any other situation. And yes, his pickup is definitely, the main thing I like to focus on is, if you're a guy wanting to figure out, it's mainly about perceived value. Like you said, with social media, you could kind of at least put yourself in a better situation than your current reality, kind of like the fake it till you make it. But it really is all about perceived value. Even when, women say they want, a guy with 6 figures and this and that, like, you're not going to be showing them your bank statements. You're not going to be showing them like, oh, here, this is who I dated, this is my other ex. You just have to have a perceived value of having all of those attributes, which, most guys could pull off until they actually figure it out.
There is a caveat to this, though, the fake it till you make it. It can get you a foot in the door, but when you're live with the girl and you got to prove and perform that you're the real deal, that's the real shit test. Can you explain what a shit test is?
Well, and like you said, hey, women are masters at finding out the truth. There was a scene in one of the Star Wars, I think it was Force Awakens, but Han Solo was kind of like confronting Rey, or Finn, the guy on there, and he says, what, the women, they always find out the truth. So yes, you got to kind of figure it out. But the shit test that you're asking about, women will constantly test you, and it's in their nature. It's a part of them finding out their best option for dating, and because of different things that they'll have to face later in life, you know you always have to pass their test, or else that's their way of, because they can't physically you know uh dominate you as a man, but they will put you through tests to see if you're going to jump through hoops. And usually they'll test you in a way that they don't want you to just be a yes man. They want you to be able to say no, or they want you to be able to kind of guide them and lead in them in the right way. Because usually if you're just kind of accommodating to all of their requests and jumping through those hoops on those shit tests, then they realize that I can't be safe and secure with this guy.
So let's say that they got a girl on a date, but you don't know what to do. How would you start off the date? How would guys lead the date?
Well, I would say this: with the biggest key when you're on a date with a woman is usually men. If you're on the date with a woman, you're already set up in the right direction. Usually they mess it up from getting that date. Less is more. Usually, they'll talk themselves out of getting the panties, or getting in the relationship, or whatever it is. But men, I feel like you need to just be able to, be confident. Your body language, when it comes to communication, say less. Ask the woman more questions, and ask the open-ended questions that they on topics that they would love to talk about, like themselves or what they're into. Less about yourself. And what communication is that women or guys, usually they forget what is actually being said. They just remember on how someone made them feel. So as long as you're just, I let the woman talk and I'll ask the questions. And a big key for guys in this whole pickup is that you want to be able to escalate physically. When you're with a girl, you want to be able to, you're asking questions, sit close enough to them to where you could kind of like gracefully, put your hand on them, or like, maybe on their shoulder if they say something funny. And you want to kino escalate, kinetically, like touch, or else you're going to be put into the friend zone. That's just another like side note. But yes, have them do most of the talking. And it's funny because it might sound like cliche or like obvious, but what guys need to relearn and hear, that just listen to them, and then repeat back some of the stuff that they're saying, and they'll feel so validated and heard, and they'll get that attention. But then also know when to cut it off. It's okay to go to another spot, or say, okay, if it's kind of you don't want to overdo your welcome, and say, hey, okay, like, as a guy, you got to say, hey, well, I got stuff to do. Let's go have another, sit down or meet up. I mean, unless you're knowing how well it's going, and you could, get to that next spot, if you know what I mean.
I will say this though, controversial take. Escalation, kino, and touching a woman. Usually in pickup, it's not a requirement per se, but eventually you have to do it. As you said, you have to differentiate between not being friend zoned and being in the I want to sleep with you zone, or I want to start something with you zone that is not being friends. But right now we live in the current era of 2020 to 2023, where if you do that and you make the wrong move and she doesn't like you, and she has a great power dynamic, some bad things can possibly happen. I'm not going to say, oh, you're going to get canceled. Oh, you're going to go to jail. That's just mostly, unfortunately, a giant scare tactic from the media. But it can happen, but it's like a really small percentage. But how can you differentiate yourself from being a friend to being a lover or something else without doing too much escalation. Because eventually you do have to do it because, you're going to have to do some certain nocturnal activities per se. Because most girls already know why you guys are just hanging out one on one. Most of these girls are not socially aware or not socially stupid. Most of these girls are very socially intelligent. They know what you're doing, they know why you're doing it. They can see you like a hawk. They have very good perception.
Exactly. Well, and that's funny you say that because it's like the scenario of, there's an office space and one guy, says something to Susie and it's, sexual harassment. But, Chad over here does the same thing and it's welcomed and he's flirting. So it's all about, you know how that is, where it's like, well, what the heck? And it's all comes down to when it's welcomed when a woman finds you attractive. So it's your goal as a guy to, before any of that, before the date, before, your first kind of approach is to be attractive up front. And there are, with some women, there is distinct features of that attraction, but some attraction is just inevitable, where it's kind of universal. If you're, there's certain attributes of, a level of well-groomed, if you're financially stable, confident, how you carry yourself, your body language, having your body a certain fit level. But from what you were really asking of, what you could do, outside of the physical touch, is it all goes back to her knowing that you've been pre-selected. So if you're out in a social situation, so for example, if I'm at the gym and you as a gym goer, you'll have like certain gym crushes or women who you'll see, and the gym is a unique situation, because you could be okay, the gym, or let's just make it anywhere where you're continuously going back to this place. I wouldn't say work, because kind of work, it might be distasteful, but if you're in a place where you constantly go back and a lot of the women know a lot of the women there, or the guys see a lot of the same guys there, vice versa, you want to be able to just be social with all the other women there. Say if you had a crush on this one girl, Rebecca, you would want Rebecca to see you talking to Karen over here and having playful, laughing, flirting kind of conversation. You want to be able to, I think men kind of lock in on one woman most of the time, but it's actually welcomed, and it's in your best interest to talk to as many women and guys as well, because you want to display being a pre-selected social person. And then from there, when you approach your desired person, it kind of gives it that nice opening or comfort and rapport up front.
Yes, indeed. Showing social competency definitely is relevant and shows interest to women. I will say that. Not just, as you said, talking to women, but talking to everyone. Showing that you're not socially inept is good social proof. But how do you usually do your dates? How do you start off? Like, difference between your first dates, your second dates? What's your structure like, man?
Well, it does mainly have a lot to do with how you meet the woman. Honestly, most of the time I'll just do it very casual, as far as I'll just have a coffee date. I no longer have like dinner first dates, bar maybe, but usually it's just a quick, shorter version of getting to meet them, having a first kind of conversation with them. And it's also different whether a big indicator of how the date will be is how you get their contact, whether it's their phone number or if it's like their Instagram. I feel like when you get their Instagram, there's obviously somewhat of a background check that both people could do, and it could be a little bit more comfortable just kind of going into something a little more than just casual. But how I usually like to structure it is just coffee, have a light conversation, see if there's at least some kind of ability to connect to get to the next level. But and then to also answer is I do like to I feel like, and this is going back to like the pickup of when you're it takes about 7 hours to get to a point with a woman where they will feel 100% comfortable with you getting to a intimate level, I should say. So whether that is all within one night or broken into I mean, let's be honest, if we're trying to guys trying to sleep with a woman, if it's not by the third date, then I'm just moving on because there's not enough interest on her end. And that 7 hours that it usually takes, a great thing a guy could do, or what I would do, is multiple spots. If it's all within one night, we'll go to one spot, but then I'll design it to where there's a spot we could go right at changing scenes. That's also because it'll feel like you've had more memories or more experiences with this person by just changing your scenery. So that's always good to do, is to like bar hop or just go to different places and to make that time with that person appear longer than it is.
Yeah, let's talk about changing scenes. Basically, you're basically saying just moving the girl from one place to the other, whether it be from one side to the other side in one venue, or as you said, going to like another place. How do you change scenes, and how should you do it between during the day and during at night?
Yes. Well, yeah, and this all kind of goes into the man leading, and when you're able to show that you could kind of take initiative, and whether it's like closing out tabs and setting up the new venue. So okay, hey, well, I know this one place, they have great live music, or let's go to this place for after hours. um and if it's in the day, if you're going to grab coffee, usually from there, just depending on what you have going on during the day, you're just mainly displaying that you could lead in the relationship, and also that you're just wanting to create as many positive experiences with this woman as possible. And also you're able to remember those like displays of higher value as a guy, the whole pre-selection, the leader of men, the willingness to emote, all that. You're wanting to show that as well in different scenarios around different people. And the best way, you don't want to tell someone, oh, you're this and this. You want to be able to kind of show them and in a actionable way. And there's no other better way to do that in besides putting yourself in those situations.
But mostly for beginners, they don't even know. It's all like, how do I even get her on the date at all? What should I do? How can I do it this way? How do I even start? So for a beginner, for a guy who like either has no dating life or doesn't even know what to do, what would be the first thing that you would tell for a newbie to start?
You're asking specifically of just getting the date, or where to go on the date, or
All of it. All of it. Like a total new guy. Totally new.
yeah, well, Yeah, well, a totally new guy. The main thing you would want to answer first is that every guy should have a purpose in life. What whether that's your experience of growing up, what did you love doing? What do you do very easily and then that you're good at, and then that you could maybe like monetize or just have a passion about um, to succeed. And with that, you're going to want to be able to just be the best version of yourself doing that. And from there, you're able to just have a certain self-awareness and self-confidence. And by doing so, you're being able to just kind of display that competence with the woman, and they could sense that. um, that would be a good start, is focusing on yourself, just to answer the question. But then from there, you want to be able to kind of show that you have value. And whether that's, I break it down to, women mainly just want to, they want to gather their security and safety uh, uh, attributes. They want to be able to find a guy who they could be safe and secure with. And in this day and age, that usually has to do with their living conditions. You could say money, but in their prehistoric brains, you still have the women who want a bigger size guy kind of thing. So being focusing on your fitness and your income or security provisions is always a great start. And guys, it's all about replication. We're designed to spread our seed, and so we look for health indicators in women. And that's why we go crazy for a woman who's like of age to potentially be a mother to a child. So we look for those kind of beauty standards in women. That's why women wear makeup, and that's why guys tend to lie. That's the game that is broken down on both the feminine and masculine. But yeah, long way to answer your question. Best way I would say for a guy to start is just focus on yourself, maximize your abilities and your passion, and be able to just dismiss and move on from women who aren't interested. If they're not reciprocating that same kind of interest, move on. Because hopefully we go in a little bit into like the simping epidemic, but men do have the power of your attention and validation. And if you're not getting that from women, put that attention to yourself and your purpose.
For sure. It's pretty bad out there because, as you said, we're going to segue into the simping epidemic. Most boys, I'm not going to say men anymore, most boys, our youth, are just want to stay in La La Land Peter Pan mode. They just want to play video games all day, feel good, and watch, unfortunately, adult content of women and not pursue real life goals per se, real life purpose. They just want to feel good all day.
Yep, I definitely agree. And with our culture of instant gratification, the dopamine hits, and honestly, guys have to go through even the higher valued guys, you have to go through a lot of rejection. So it's like, what are you going to do to kind of numb that pain, or numb the rejection? So there are outlets, but as a guy, you just have to be disciplined and focused to kind of offset all of these things that are shoved in your face. And honestly, now, like, I'll look at when I see, and you could relate, Julius, of here in Las Vegas, and what's being put out in your face. When I see that, when I see like, I've never liked a tease, like even going to the strip club was like I reluctantly go because I know what they're doing. I know what they're faking of being interest, but they really just want your money. So every time I see, women twerking, or I see, this like these thirst traps on, social media, and I see that when women try to promote that lust, it turns me off, because as a guy, that is what will steer you away from your values and your, I look at it differently, and every guy should, because that usually doesn't lead to anything worthwhile. That whole lust, it's just bad taste in my head nowadays.
Let me extrapolate your thoughts to see if I can clarify it right. Because I have some friends, when I came here to Vegas, I met some female models. Some girls do OnlyFans, porn stars, strippers, whatever the hell they are anymore. They're just doing it to make money. That's their power. That's their leverage, is using their lust and their bodies to take control of their financial freedom, take money from the customers, which are the simps, because the simp economy is never going to die. It's going to keep increasing. It's also, it's like the drug economy, unfortunately. It's keeping and thriving our national economy. It's keeping it alive. But I will say this, though, like how your distaste towards the lust, towards these voluptuous women, because of the purpose, the reason, indicator of why they're doing it, is mostly just for money. So not to find love, or it's mostly just because they have massive insecurity in their lives. And then this helps them be secure, per se. I could be wrong though, but mostly it's just for money or being secure, whether financially or mentally. But there are long-term ramifications for these women that if they stay there too long within this industry or that type of a mentality, it can damage them. It can destroy their mental health, per se. And not just that, their male prospects that they're looking for if they want to go into a long-term relationship and have children, it can take a toll on them because they have to deal with all the shame that they can't handle because it's hard.
Oh yeah, and to expand on that, I would say, and I'm sure women should know this, as far as men usually invest on a woman's past, and a woman will invest on a man's future. So, with this internet era, and yes, there's no shame or being able to feel liberated in exposing your sexuality. That's good and well, but there are certain things that are forever. I'll just say, like, just a woman. Imagine if you have like a son or any kid in general, and if they're able to be in school, and if another kid shows their mom in some kind of sexual way, like, that stuff doesn't go away. Like, and also I think you were kind of, you're mentioning is the mentality, the certain things that they go through. I think when they expose themselves, they will look at the other, they'll look at men differently for knowing their I guess the dark nature of, okay, if you're putting yourself out there and there's the harsh demands, then they're gonna feel a certain way about men for that. And yes, one of Drake's songs, which is so true, is that for women, you want to yeah, laugh now, cry later. And there's always and I'm sure it from Michael Sartain and Rollo Tomasi, is that there's an epiphany phase, usually right around late 20s, early 30s, where they realize that everything changes for them. So some of them, you try to let them know ahead of time. And let me just also say, when a guy dates a woman, as far as the value exchange, a real guy, if you're spitting this kind of game to him, that's also one of those values that can't be matched with just money or your resources. But if you're able to teach, some women this kind of stuff, and they're able to actually take action, they'll value it later, because a lot of them, they can't get out of their own ways for their own destruction. When and on a cultural narrative, when they're being taught that, oh, it's okay to, bust it wide open, or to have your OnlyFans, and to do and say this on such a public level. Laugh now, cry later. That's usually what it goes down to for a lot of them, unfortunately.
Indeed, I will say this. Fast money will probably destroy you. So, say for example, we already talked about it, for girls, OnlyFans, prostitution, fucking camming, all that sex work stuff. But for guys, it could be bad as well. So not just the money aspect, but like for health, steroids, prostitution, if you're participating in that. Like some guys say like, oh, dating's prostitution, or it's all like, oh, going to Thailand and finding a wife is not prostitution. You're trying to find love. Like there's this movement called the passport bros, where this has been going on before it's a movement, where it's just, I'm not gonna say usually white guys, but usually lonely men within the age range between 40 to 60 that have money, making around 20 to 100K, go to other countries and try to find love. And it's not just to, bang a bunch of poor women, which sounds terrible when I say it. It's just to find supposedly a soulmate. Now that could be detrimental because, what is love, controversially? But also, these men are putting women on a pedestal. They're trying to find true love, the fantasy of love that Disney has put out.
Absolutely, and I'm definitely very familiar with the passport bros, and it's mainly just getting away from the Western world and culture. These passport guys who, they go to some areas of, Thailand, or some areas where Colombia, Dominican Republic, where the traditional roles of a guy and woman are kind of still intact. That's mainly what it is. Women are still very feminine there, and they value a man for just being a man and what they're innately able to do. It's not just about, how much money you're making, what your status is. So I think a lot of guys, they need and want that. Here in the Western world, a lot of these women, they have an over inflated sense of their own worth. There's an entitlement. They're being told this and that. And another thing, it's just that when you're with a woman, I find it very it's very advantageous to just kind of show them the reality, because usually the women now, they have a big ego, and you just have to be able to be real with them and pretty much put up a mirror to them. Everyone has their insecurities, and just say that, hey, like, this is how it is. This is who I am. I know who you really are, minus all of this, image that you're putting up. And from there, once those walls are broken down, it could be a real, at least an attempt for a real connection. But I could see why, many guys are going across seas to find that companionship, because here they're being taught something completely different. And a lot of these women are and women need to know that feminine power. You don't have to be so masculine. there is guys desire that feminine nature, and it's like a healing. It's like it's a beautiful thing when you have a woman who still is in that feminine presence.
Most women, or most people, I will say, outside of the US, most like third world countries, unfortunately, they are 10 years behind, usually in technology, social movements, etc. My friend, when he came here to the US, he's from Saudi Arabia. The culture shock was real, especially with women, since he's a Muslim. Being a Muslim women, very different from US women or European women or first world women, trying to encapsulate that. But most first world women or men act very differently, whether you're in the USA versus Mexico or USA and Philippines. It's very different. It's very old versus modern per se.
Right, and exactly and I've heard that before, where the more you get out of the like first world problems, and you go into a third world country, it all of that superficial stuff usually gets broken down, and it goes back to the original gender roles. So we just live in a privileged, entitled, shameless community where the values are all messed up. That's how I personally feel, and we are, being pushed. I don't want to get too political, but I do believe there is some propaganda of the the whole fluidness of the feminine versus the masculine, and I just don't agree with a lot of it. But yeah, when you go to these other third world countries, and when shit hits the fan, that's usually when people go back to their original roles. uh, I think that there might need to be a correction on that. It's
We'll
just
see, we'll
that
see.
we there yeah, the current setup is kind of being taken advantage of, and it's we live in an era where things are so convenient, uh, just so readily available, and there is I know there's some things that happen, but we're a super safe society where walking down the street late at night, and women dressed at the way that they are, like we live in these bubbles that it just condones some of that bad behavior.
Yeah, indeed. As from what I've been told, shout out to Mike, the more we get closer to the survival setting, the more we go back to our primal evolutionary wiring, our evolutionary psychology and biology. We just go back to our basic baseline of that.
It's like the if you know of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, when all of this stuff is broken down, and like what we went through in 2020, where it just what was important was your essentials. I feel like same with dating, where we get to a space where without all of this extra, with all of our extra luxuries, we'll go back to that kind of primal traditional way of dating. But the way it looks, it's not like it's going to happen anytime soon. Yes, there is that discrepancy you're talking about, from there's no middle class, so maybe there might be a way that that might have some kind of adjustment, but it'd be tough the way social media is as well, and where attention goes.
Yeah, right now our civilization is just advancing. We're not really going to go back to the old ways. That's just how people work since day one, since the advent of mankind being born. That's just how we work. We all we want is just convenience and just advancing in our evolution and just doing better, because there's no reason why to go back to old archaic things that don't work and that are very terrible. Like no one wants to live as a peasant back in the old days when feudal eras exist, kings and queens and just war every day. Like why would you want to go back to that? Like, is it what's the dating
Right.
scene like that? What's the dating scene between peasants?
And you know, in this civilized, we're very fortunate to be on this level of civilization. And you know, as a guy, and I'm talking directly to the men because I think we're being taught something completely different. But as a guy, you have to just be able to adapt more than ever. You know, chivalry is definitely dead. So I no longer will I guess start off or display that. You know, you have to adapt to this new dating dating market. So that and increasing your perceived value along with your actual value as much as possible, as quick as possible. So those two things are definitely what I would focus on.
Let's get back to the OnlyFans, because right now single moms are on the rise, and it's now somewhat of a new cultural norm that some of these women, these single moms, or whether they're married, which is, whoa, that's new. Married moms having an OnlyFans? What? When these single moms or these women that have OnlyFans, they have kids, and once in a blue moon, I'm not gonna say this is common, but it has happened. These kids are getting bullied, or these kids are experiencing out of the norm experiences as a youth. Say, for example, this one mom, she was very attractive. I'm assuming she doesn't have an OnlyFans, but she has a social media presence. Uh, she had a video recorded of her jumping up to her 15-year-old son and hugging her, but not as a mom, but kind of very suspicious, where both her legs were crossed and she, glomped on top of him and grabbed her 15-year-old football son. And it looked like, wait, that's his girlfriend? And it's like, no, it's not his girlfriend, that's his mom. It's like, what the hell? I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw the
well,
video.
and I believe so, and I've seen definitely some variations, multiple versions of that, and you know I believe that companionship. A lot of the single moms with sons will try to substitute that companionship of their son with not having a actual partner. I mean, it's unfortunate, and especially it could affect the son as well. But it just kind of all goes back to, I feel like in this time where you know a lot of the men just aren't valued. They say, oh, like a woman will say, oh, like I don't need a man, which it often is true now. It's whether they want and like highly desire a man, and you got to make sure up front if your values are aligned, because it's like they don't have any problem half the time being a baby mama versus married or just having a lifelong partner. But as long as they get their kid out of it, then you know what, whether it's supporting the kid on their own, having some kind of child support, that's kind of the, I wouldn't say goal, but they're definitely comfortable going that route. Um, it's the unfortunate truth.
What is a hoflation, and are we in one?
And well, I know you saw my recent story post about that, the whole inflation, and I know a lot of people online where they just show like a list of all these places that are somewhat no longer accepted to as a guy to take a girl out on a date. I mean, some of them were just like, Cheesecake Factory, certain, Chili's, just, franchise establishments. And the whole inflation is that it's just like, the inflation in the economy where a guy is having to put in twice, three times the effort to just get like half of as much in return. It used to be with, in and this isn't too long ago, where our parents or our parents' generation, where you could go up to a girl, you approach her, show some interest, and that would be reciprocated. So the difference in inflation and just the generational aspect is that our parents or our parents, they could show, go approach a girl, have interest, take them to the diner, and start up a relationship. And what the difference is back then, a woman would really invest in a guy and help build him up. He could kind of just be starting off, and they could build a life together. Nowadays, it seems like the women, they're just there. They're sitting at the finish line. They're just they're waiting at the finish line, waiting for the winners. And there's another thing that I've heard of nowadays. It's more of is that they're now just running the race, and the whole inflation aspect of it is that you're having to do so much more, and because of how women are hypergamous, they want the highest value man, and they think that because of they could get a respond from a DM from some verified account, or they could be accepted, at Encore Beach Club in someone's section, that one time, that they deserve this kind of caliber of man. And the woman herself, it's tough. I don't want to shame the women, but you know what I'm talking about, what they're bringing to the table. It's not much on their part, and they just have an overinflated value of themselves while thinking they deserve a guy who they were able to get in their DMs, or a guy who even smashed them, hit it and quit it kind of thing. So it's the perception is off on the women. I think there's a delusion to be, direct about it.
Where can we find you, Wilson Walker? Where can we find you?
Well, Wilson_Walker, whether that's on Instagram, I have YouTube, Facebook channels, but my main brand or myself, the best way to reach me is Wilson_Walker. Mainly I'm in, when we started this is, real estate, entrepreneurship, business, but I definitely do, I have a passion talking about our current dating world as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Ironically, me as well, between dating, mostly social dynamics. This is the Jolius podcast. Thank you for watching this episode with my good friend Wilson Walker, and we will see you later.